Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is later. We're going to start with meditation, so I'll start you off with that because the Buddha taught how to train your mind to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is a mental state where the mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The enlightened mental state is where you've trained your mind to no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom. All of this is eliminated from the mind. And it's through training of the mind. There's meditation that you need in order to train their mind, but there's other things that you need as well in order to train the mind. It's not just meditation. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment, but this isn't actually true. It takes gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to be able to move the mind to this enlightened mental state. So I'm going to start off with meditation because it's an important component of your practice. But then afterwards, we're going to go into what's called the Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is when we get to it. If you'd like to join us for the meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. I have the chants over there on a laminated sheet. You guys are welcome to help yourself and get a sheet over there on the cabinet. You'll be able to see the chants, and I'll be chanting, and you guys are welcome to chant along if you'd like. For anybody who's online, you'll find these chants on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down towards the bottom, and you'll see the daily chanting sheet there. So if you look at these chants, they're in the Pali language, and then there's the English translations. So we chant in the Pali language. This is the historical language of the teachings of the Buddha, that the source that we rely on as his original words are in the Pali language. But if you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, hey, chant these things to me out of respect for me. This would be like ego and arrogance and putting yourself above other people, where by the time you've gotten to enlightenment, you've eliminated your ego and your mind is humble and you see everybody as being equal. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So this is the origins of chanting. There isn't anything mystical or magical with chanting. It's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or prayer, or anything like that. It's just helping your mind today to ease into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used it as a learning tool because everything he taught was oral. They didn't have the technology to write things down in order to capture the teachings. They didn't get to that region of the world until shortly after his death. So during his lifetime, everything was taught orally, and they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So we don't need to do that today because we have books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, all these kinds of things. So we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings. But I still chant because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. And as I mentioned, I suspect that these chants were actually created by his students, because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings to this mental state, which is a permanent mental state where the mind is only experiencing peace and joy, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might actually have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So that's why I suspect that these chants actually came from his students either during his life or after his death. So you're welcome to chant along if you'd like as I do the chanting. After that, you're going to hear me giving you some guidance while we're actually meditating. I'm going to be instructing you in the meditation while we're actually meditating. So as you hear me guiding you, I'll be helping you to actually learn meditation while I'm actually guiding you during the meditation. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet. We're just all meditating together, everyone here and everyone online. During that period, I imagine you're going to hear occasional sounds because you can't be in an environment that is permanently quiet. You're probably going to hear a car go by, maybe a bird chirping, a dog barking, maybe someone's coughs or sneezes here. This is all very normal. This is impermanence, that things arise, they change, and they fade away. If your mind craves permanence, then when you hear something that is impermanent like a sound, you'll be frustrated or annoyed. But that's your own mind that's causing that. It's not the outside world that is causing your discontent feelings. That's why you can eliminate your anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings, because it's being caused by your own mind. It's not being caused by the outside world. And the Buddha's teachings will help you to be able to see this. So if you hear a sound during meditation, this is completely normal, and it's going to arise, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away. And you can just rest peacefully and joyfully, knowing that the world is functioning exactly the way that it's intended to function, and that's a completely normal thing, because you can't be in an environment that's permanently quiet. It's just not possible. Then after that period of time where we're meditating and it's essentially quiet, we're going to be coming out of that with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. These are the 4 positions that an individual would learn in their journey to enlightenment, because you would employ these at different times. It's kind of like a tool belt that you would use these different body positions at different times. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, so I'll share some guidance with you on this just to help you get started. And then in other programs that I teach, you can learn these other positions. So if you're sitting, you can either sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair, any of these other things. There's not just one way to sit, because that would be permanence, and we understand that things are constantly changing in the world. So you can really sit however you like. I'll give you some guidance and suggestions, but you shouldn't take this as hard, fast rules, because what's important is that you get your body to a point where it's comfortable, and your body is unique to you, and you're going to find different things to be comfortable. So I'll give you some things to consider and some suggestions, and then you can decide for yourself what works best for you. So if you're on the floor, oftentimes people like to have cushions under their rear. This will help soften your seat. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So you might consider something like that. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and then he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can really decide for yourself where you would like to put your hands and your arms. And then for anybody who's in a chair or on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair or anything like this, it's the same thing. You can sit however you're comfortable. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed. So this is an option as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. It's helpful if the upper body is erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during this time frame so you can actively train the mind. It also helps it so that you can breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. If you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic, but if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle where your mind can be attentive and alert, and it makes it easy to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on, and then I'm going to come back in with guidance to help you from there. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami สุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakhato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusranang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. Good morning to all of you guys. As I was mentioning, today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is here in a little bit. But first, just to talk about this meditation a little bit. This is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training that you're going to need, among other things, to make your way to enlightenment. As I was mentioning, what enlightenment is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is a permanent mental state that you'll be experiencing for the rest of this life, where the mind is completely peaceful and joyful. You will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. The causes and conditions that are producing these feelings have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind. There are certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered, and when you understand what those pollutions are and you have the tools and techniques to eliminate them, your mind will be performing more optimally. That you'll notice that you have focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. That your personal, professional relationships will really be blossoming because you won't be bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships any longer. That bitterness and harshness and hostility is actually coming from your own mind. Oftentimes people think that other people are causing this, but it's actually coming from your own mind, and you can uproot this out of the mind where you can be loving and kind, warm and gentle in all situations. You can get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood any longer, but you need to be able to understand this path and how to train your mind to accomplish this. Oftentimes people think that what they're experiencing in the unenlightened state with all this anger and frustration and other feelings, they just feel like that they're going to be subjected to this for the rest of their life. They might feel like that they're just meant to experience this for the rest of their life. Or they might think that other people are causing these feelings. But you can get to the point where you understand that your own mind is causing these feelings and that you can actually eliminate them through training of the mind. So this breathing mindfulness meditation is a primary form of training that an individual might use in order to make their way to enlightenment. This is one of the primary things that the Buddha taught, but there's many other teachings that an individual would need in order to understand those and be able to practice them in order to get to enlightenment. The teachings of the Buddha aren't based on a bunch of beliefs where you're believing a bunch of things and then just hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning, examining, investigating teachings now in this life. You're then reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. Then you're practicing the teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to train the mind and uproot these pollutions out of the mind. So this breathing mindfulness meditation, you're helping the mind to cultivate the wholesome qualities of concentration and mindfulness. What mindfulness is where you're aware of your mind, because there's certain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, but there's also certain unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind right now. And you're going to need to be aware of these so that you can apply the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome. So you're going to need this mindfulness or awareness of mind where you're aware of what's going on in your mind day to day, moment by moment. And then you're going to need focus and concentration so that you can bring forth your wisdom and make wise decisions in your day-to-day life. So this meditation, the breathing mindfulness meditation, the goal is to help you cultivate this mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration where you can have focus and clarity and be able to focus your mind on accomplishing any particular task. It's also training your mind to let go. So when your mind moves off your breath and you're training it to let go, this is eliminating the unwholesome quality of craving, desire, attachment. This is the underlying cause, which is causing your mind to be angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or any of these other discontent feelings, is the mind has what's called craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations. The mind is longing, yearning. The mind's holding on to things, wanting things to be a certain way. And if the mind gets what it wants, it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So your mind in the unenlightened state is craving permanence. It's important that you don't believe what I'm sharing with you here today, because if you would like to have this breakthrough to understanding what it is that's causing these feelings in your mind, you're going to need to be able to independently verify what I'm sharing. That your mind is craving this permanence, wanting things to be permanently a certain way, and you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is constantly changing, but yet the mind craves permanence, wanting things to be permanent. So for example, if you could think back to a boyfriend or girlfriend that you might have had when you guys first got together, maybe you really wanted a boyfriend or girlfriend. You got so happy because your mind was getting what you wanted, right? You're getting this affection. You're getting somebody to talk to. Somebody was calling you and checking in on you. Maybe you're going to the movies or to dinner. Maybe you're going to the park. Maybe you're having great conversations. You might be having intimate contact, sexual contact. And wow, you had all these pleasant feelings, right? Because your mind was getting what it wanted. But then over time, you had certain expectations and they had certain expectations, and you couldn't fulfill that person's expectations permanently. And they couldn't fulfill your expectations and what you wanted from them. And then you guys got angry and frustrated and you broke up. And now you might have been lonely or bored for a period of time. You might have been missing this person. You might have been angry, right? This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. It's not your love that's causing that. It's not your care or your concern for this person. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting this relationship to be permanent. You can see this when people close to you have died. Maybe your grandmother or grandfather, mom or dad, brothers or sisters, close friends. When they die and you're grieving, it's not because of your love. It's because the mind is holding on and craving permanence, wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. As long as they're alive, the mind's getting what it wants, so it's happy. But then when the mind's not getting what it wants, which is grandma and grandpa to be in your life permanently, now the mind grieves or is sorrowful. And you're not a bad person if your mind's doing this. It's just that the mind craves permanence in the unenlightened state. You can see it in a wedding. If you've ever been to a wedding, if you've seen people grieving around you, or if you were sad in a wedding, this is the mind holding on to brothers or sisters or friends or family members, wanting them to be permanently in your life. And here's this ceremony where they're going off into the world with someone else. And the mind's like, hold on a second, that's my brother, that's my sister. How dare you take them away from me? And the mind's holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent. You can see it if you've ever had like a brand new car and you took it and you parked it at a store and you went inside and then you came out and you saw a scratch on the car. You might have been frustrated or agitated or annoyed. This is because the mind's craving permanence. This car, while it would be wonderful if nobody ever scratched it, it's not possible because we live in an impermanent world, right? When we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. That's what we try to do. But this car that we have, the paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be replaced. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. And if our mind craves permanence, when we experience this impermanence, the mind doesn't like it. The mind doesn't realize that it lives in an impermanent world. Everything around you is constantly changing. So this meditation is training your mind to let go, because what the mind does in the unenlightened state is it holds on. It holds on. Remember that boyfriend or girlfriend, your mind was holding on to them and you were missing them and you felt lonely and you felt bored and you were angry. But at some point you let go, and that's where you regained your peacefulness and your joy. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And your mind let go. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where you're like, whoa, the peacefulness and the joy came back. But the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't know how to let go. So this meditation is essentially like taking your mind to the gym and exercising it, training it to let go. So that now in day-to-day life, when you're noticing the anger and frustration arising, you can let go. But if you haven't been training your mind regularly and consistently with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and all the other teachings that the Buddha shares, your mind doesn't know how to let go. So you're going to experience anger and frustration and sadness because you can't get what you want permanently, right? Think back to when we were children. We wanted chocolate and ice cream, and boy, we were so happy when we got chocolate and ice cream. Mom and dad were like the best mom and dad ever. When we got chocolate and ice cream, it was like, wow, this is so wonderful. And if we got chocolate and ice cream more than one time in a day, that was a really good day. right? But then there were certain days where we didn't get chocolate and ice cream, and we were angry, we were frustrated. You're the worst mommy and daddy ever, right? That's because the mind's not getting its craving fulfilled, the longing, the yearning. The mind wants that chocolate and ice cream to be permanent, when in reality, it's impermanent. We can't eat chocolate and ice cream every day. It's just not possible. But that's what our mind wanted and expected when we were a child. And we were only happy when we got that, or we got something else that we wanted. So the mind needs to be trained to let go. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes that's what people think, because you're focused on the breath, and when the mind moves off the breath, you cut it off and let it go, and they think, oh, I had a thought, so I didn't do meditation very well. I'm just not good at meditation. This isn't actually true. Even an enlightened being will have thoughts during meditation. But the difference is in the unenlightened state, you will have a bombardment of thoughts. If while you were meditating, you experience like thought, that's completely normal, especially when you first get started. Or you might have had a thought, and you played with it, you looked at it, you followed it for a while, you indulged in it, and then you were like 2 minutes down the road, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. This is very normal. So if you experience any of those things, that's normal. An enlightened being will still have thoughts, but they notice it right away, and they cut it off and let it go. And then there's quietness and stillness in the mind in between their thoughts. But then they're going to eventually have another thought, again, during meditation. So in your meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that comes up, because you're training your mind. You're exercising the mind. You're making it stronger. Just like taking your body to the gym and you exercise, you make your muscles stronger. Now, when you go out in the world, you can use your muscles, right? So in the meditation, anything that comes up, whether it's wholesome or it's unwholesome, you cut it off and let it go, because you're training your mind to let go. So when your mind is on the breath, that's training it for concentration and focus. When your mind moves off the breath and you notice that, that's your mindfulness. That's your awareness of mind, that you noticed your mind moved off the breath. And when you let go and bring it back to the breath, that's you training your mind to let go, to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that comes up. But then in daily life, you're only letting go and cutting off of the unwholesome things. Right? So if in your daily life you have a thought, you'd like to call your mom, check in on her, see how she's doing, maybe invite her out to dinner or lunch or something, no need to cut that off. You're not causing any harm. So call up your mom, see how she's doing, ask her to go to lunch or dinner if you'd like to do that. But if you have the thought of punching your boss in the face, you should probably cut that off, right? Because that's going to produce unwholesome results for you, right? So you cut that off, right? So this is very much like a professional athlete. If I was a pole vaulter and I went into the gym, I would be doing weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. That would look very different than what I do in my sport. When I go out and do pole vaulting, it looks very different than my workout. So your workout, when you're exercising the mind with meditation, you're cutting off everything and anything, because you're training your mind to have concentration, mindfulness or awareness of mind, and to let go. But then in day-to-day life, you only cut off the unwholesome things that are arising. Anytime that you're going to be causing harm to others, you would like to cut that off and let it go. Causing harm to others is like causing harm to their physical body, to their material possessions, to their reputation. If you cause harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. This is the natural law, that when you put out harm, harm is going to come back to you. So this is called breathing mindfulness meditation. And it's a primary form of training that you use to essentially help you clean up your mind, because there's certain pollutions that are in your mind. And there's other meditations that the Buddha taught as well that you would need to learn. Because right now you've probably learned how to clean the body. This is something that we all learn growing up as a child. Our parents will typically teach us to clean our body. But if you haven't learned how to clean your mind, you're not addressing this whole being. There's two aspects to this being. There's the physical body, and then there's the mind, right? And if you went like a few days or a few weeks or a few months or say a few years without cleaning your body, how uncomfortable would you feel? You'd feel pretty uncomfortable. So if you go all these years without cleaning your mind, no wonder you feel uncomfortable in certain situations. You have stress, you have anxiety, you have frustration and agitation because you're not cleaning the mind. And nobody's ever taught you how to do that. And you haven't taken the opportunity to do that. So this is an opportunity for you, if you decide that you would like to learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha, to learn how to clean the mind. And that's what they learn here in Thailand growing up as children. And that's one of the reasons why you see so much peacefulness and so much joy here in Thailand, is because people learned this growing up. They're not just cleaning the body, they're cleaning the mind as well. And now you're at a place here, and the people who are joining us online are joining to be able to learn, potentially, if you'd like to learn how to clean your mind. That's what the teachings of the Buddha are here for. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause and see if you guys have any questions about meditation before we go into the Pali Canon and English study group. If you guys would like to ask questions, we have microphones here in the middle of the room in the white bowl. All you need to do is get a microphone and press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on. You just hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can just keep the microphones with you, because you might actually have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone. And if you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anyone who's online, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, you can put your questions into the comment section and I'll be able to see that. Or you can raise your hand electronically in Zoom and then unmute your microphone and ask any questions that you like. So do you guys have any questions that you would like to ask about anything I've shared so far? No questions? Okay. Let me see here if we have anything online. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any questions here either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you guys what is the Pali Canon and English study group. The different programs that we have here, they're designed to help people to be able to understand this entire path to enlightenment. Getting to enlightenment isn't a one-day thing, a one-week thing, a one-month thing, or even a one-year thing. It's going to take someone multiple years to train their mind to get to enlightenment. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time. And what you do is you study based on the original words of the Buddha. If you're not studying with the original words of the Buddha, you don't know what he taught and what he didn't teach. If you've been learning rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship or prayer or anything like this related to the teachings of the Buddha, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. He never taught any of those kinds of things. If you've been taught to just believe things, he never taught belief. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't about believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing now in this life to experience better results in your life now. You can get to the point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful, and you're living the ideal life in this particular life now. So you're gradually making improvement to your mind and to your life. You're doing this inner work. The Buddhist teachings are like a self-help program. And rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship doesn't allow you to cultivate wisdom, because you're going to need wisdom in order to be able to improve the condition of your mind in your life. You can't pray your way to a better life. It's just not possible, right? So the Buddha is teaching you how to train your mind through the cultivation of wisdom. So we have various programs that will help you do that. There's the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course I teach once a month, the first full week of each month. We have the Harmony and Relationships course. We have Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 Stages of Enlightenment. We have a retreat in January that's everything you need to get to the first stage of enlightenment. And then in August, I have a retreat that I teach everything you need to get to enlightenment itself. We base our teachings around this 13-book series that we have. The very first book is called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And you can get this for free. You can download it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for our printing costs so that we can purchase books for other people, or you can order it on Amazon. And this is where most people start, is in this particular book. It's the first book of the book series. And like I mentioned, you can get it at no cost. And we have various programs that'll help you to be able to gradually learn that over time. In fact, Sunday and Wednesday is our group learning program where we walk through this book chapter by chapter every Sunday. It takes about 7 months to go through this book chapter by chapter. And then we have various courses that are designed around this book to be able to help you cultivate the mind and learn the wisdom of how to get to enlightenment. Then we have this program called the Pali Canon in English Study Group. What the Pali Canon is 45 volumes of books that are this thick. These are the original teachings of the Buddha. It's the largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha. Now, sometimes people are used to something like Christianity or Muslim teachings where there's just one book, essentially, where the Bible is, multiple books. It's actually 66 books contained in one actual book, right? Where the Buddha's teachings are in 45 books that are this thick, because he taught for 45 years. So from the age of 35 to 80, he helped people get to enlightenment. Countless people got to enlightenment. And then they documented his teachings shortly after his death. So the Pali Canon, meaning the Pali language, is the largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha. What this book series does is it consolidates it down into 13 books to make it more accessible to you. Because reading 45 books that are this thick, it'll take you a pretty long time. But there's a lot of repetition in this particular collection of teachings. So this book series has been consolidated to the point where you can approach it more readily and actually learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. And in this Pali Canon in English Study Group, we study volumes 2 through 13, where the other programs are looking at volume 1, which is a real foundation and creating a framework for you. This program on Saturdays is to fill in that framework through volumes 2 through 13. And it takes us a year and a half to go through all of those. And this is where an individual is gradually learning how to move their mind to enlightenment. We are currently in volume 11. Right? This isn't where somebody will typically start. We use this particular time as more of a study group. And the way that I do this is I invite somebody to read the particular chapter that we have behind here. I've got a chapter. It's very short. They're usually like half a page or sometimes just a couple of paragraphs. After a student reads, either here or from Zoom, then I will share some teachings on that to help you guys further explore this and how to integrate it into your life. And then I will open up to questions that you guys might have. Being in volume 11, this particular book is titled The Realms of Existence. This is where you're learning about the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirits realm, which is like ghosts, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. Now, remember what I shared. The teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. These 5 realms are something that you can independently verify. The Buddha is teaching you that these realms exist because you might actually have contact with these beings. As you're starting to awaken your mind, you might actually see these beings with your eyes. And if you didn't understand that these beings are actually true and real, even though some of them are formless, like hell, afflicted spirits, and heavenly beings, if you didn't understand that this is truly the way the world is, it could really shake you up. Or some people can hear these beings, and it's almost like hearing voices in your mind. And if you had these experiences and you didn't understand this is the way the world is, it could really shake you up. So the Buddha is teaching you the way the world is. His teachings aren't teaching you the way the world should be. And then if everybody follows rules and commandments, then the world will become a better place. He's actually teaching you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, then you can navigate the world more peacefully. But when you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle and you'll have difficulties. That's what the stress and the anxiety and the anger and the frustration is, the mind struggling in the world. But you can get to the point where you've awoken, meaning you've cultivated wisdom about the world, and now you can navigate it peacefully. So we just happened to start this book recently, this volume 11, and we're in the section that's describing hell. So this first chapter that I have that we're going to be studying today, which is chapter 21, it's about the hell realm. This isn't where someone will typically start their journey to enlightenment, learning about this kind of thing, right? There's other teachings that are the core central teachings of the Buddha that you would normally start there. So if this is your first time learning about the teachings of the Buddha, it's important to understand that there's other programs that are much more well suited for somebody to first get started. But this is the first chapter that we have to study here. And you can see it's about a half a page. It goes from here down to this line. And you've got the words of the Buddha here. You've got a reference which takes you back to the original source teachings in the Pali Canon. Then you've got words from me that are helping you to be able to understand further what you're learning here and how to integrate it into your life. So what we do in this program is I invite somebody here or online through Zoom just to read the words of the Buddha. And then after someone reads it, I will open up or I will share some teachings on that. Then I'll open up for questions. So if you guys would like to volunteer, we have microphones here, or if anybody on Zoom would like to volunteer, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any, or volunteer to read, and then ultimately you can ask questions that way too. So is there anyone here that would like to read this first chapter, or anybody in Zoom that would like to read this first chapter? Yeah, please help yourself. Steve and Rachel.
Chapter 21, Doomed to Deprivation in Hell for an Eon. Monks, conquered by three forms of false teachings, his mind overwhelmed, Devadatta, cousin, brother-in-law to Gotama Buddha, is incurably doomed to deprivation to hell for an eon. Which three? Conquered by unwholesome desires, his mind overwhelmed, Devadatta is incurably doomed to deprivation to hell for the duration of an eon. Conquered by friendship with unwholesome people, his mind overwhelmed, Devadatta is incurably doomed to deprivation to hell for the duration of an eon. And there being something further to be done, he nevertheless stopped halfway with a lower degree of distinctive attainment. Conquered by these three forms of false teachings, his mind overwhelmed, Devadatta is incurably doomed to deprivation to hell for an eon.
Okay, thank you, sir. So again, this isn't where somebody would actually start their learning of the teachings of the Buddha. Remember, we're in volume 11 here, right? So it's volume 11 for a reason, because these five realms, the cycle of rebirth, all these things are true. You can actually independently verify them when you cultivate the wisdom of how to do so, but it's not where someone usually starts, because what's happened in the past, it's in the past. What may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. Right now, you're a human being. You're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration in certain situations. There's other core central teachings that are going to help you to be able to establish the elimination of these discontent feelings. But ultimately, as you're working on the path and you're eliminating these pollutions, you can get to the point where, like I said, you might have contact with these different beings, and you might need to understand, you might be interested to understand this cycle of rebirth. So this particular book is here to help students to be able to understand that. So here, the Buddha is actually teaching one of his students about this individual Devadatta. He is thought to be either the cousin or the brother-in-law of the Buddha. And he was very jealous of the Buddha. He was actually a student of the Buddha, and he was learning and studying with the Buddha. He actually tried to kill the Buddha at different times because he was so jealous of the Buddha that he wanted to take over the community of students that the Buddha had, and he thought that if he killed the Buddha, he would be able to do that. So this individual was studying with the Buddha, but he wasn't a very close student. He wasn't someone who was actively learning and growing and developing. He was very much having a lot of animosity and things like that. So the Buddha was saying here how this individual has been conquered by these three false teachings, three teachings that are actually unwise to be able to adopt as part of your practice. So this, and because of that, the Buddha is saying that this individual, when they die, are going to be reborn in hell for an eon. An eon is saying an immeasurable amount of time. During the lifetime of the Buddha, the highest number that they had available to them was the 100,000th place. So they didn't have like 1 million. Today we have 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion. We have well beyond that, right? We've come up with all these ways of counting numbers really, really high. So the Buddha wasn't able to count beyond the number 999,999, right? That was like the highest number that they could count to. They didn't have the number 1 million. So anything beyond that 1 millionth place, 1 millionth or beyond, they would refer to it as an eon, right? There was like an immeasurable amount of time to them. So he's saying that this individual, because of these three false teachings, they're going to be reborn in hell for an eon, meaning they're going to exist in that realm for an immeasurable amount of time. So when you see a teaching like this, rather than focus on who's going to hell and who's not going to hell, or worried about whether you're going to go to hell or not, that's not what the Buddha is doing. He doesn't try to guilt, shame, or fear you into learning his teachings. And he also doesn't hold a carrot and say, say, hey, come learn these teachings so you can get to heaven, because that's not the goal of his teachings. The goal of his teachings isn't to get to heaven. The goal of his teachings is to get to a wonderful life now, in this life. It's not about an afterlife. The Buddha's not teaching you to get to a better afterlife. He's teaching you to get to a wonderful life now, in this life. So you don't need to look at a teaching like this in order to have fear or shame or guilt, or when you learn about the heavenly realm, it's not there in order to motivate you to do any particular thing. He's just explaining to you what happens. So when you see a teaching like this, where he's talking about what leads to hell for this individual, it would be helpful for you to be able just to understand what it is, so that you can ensure that these are things that you're not adopting as part of your life. So this first one, he's saying that he's conquered by unwholesome desires. His mind is overwhelmed. So because of that, he's going to end up being reborn into this realm of hell for an eon. So unwholesome desires are like the longing, yearning that the mind has. Like, say you were longing, yearning to use illicit drugs like cocaine, heroin, things like this. If you were longing, yearning to have lots and lots and lots of sex with lots of different people. Let's just say you were stealing, or you were killing, or you were lying, things like this. Any kind of unwholesome things that the mind is longing, yearning for, there's a certain amount of craving in the mind that the mind's longing, yearning. And as long as the mind's longing, yearning, there's going to be rebirth. And if there's a significant amount of those things, then it can lead to rebirth into the lower realms of hell, animal, or afflicted spirits. Then he's saying that this individual is conquered by friendships with unwholesome people, right? If you have unwholesome people around you, these are choices that you're making. Who you choose to associate with as friends or coworkers, or what company you choose to work for, all these kinds of things. These are choices that you're making. Nobody's forcing you to do these kinds of things. So when you cultivate wisdom about wise decision making and who it would be wise to spend time with, you would cultivate relationships that are wholesome. Because when you're around unwholesome individuals, your mind's going to tend to be leaning in that direction, and you might not even see that this is occurring. So if you're around people who are regularly stealing, or having sexual misconduct, or lying, or taking drugs and intoxicants, your mind's going to tend to do those things too. Maybe as a child, I had a friend who would, maybe at 10 years old, 12 years old, we hung out all the time. And maybe we were childhood friends all through our childhood. And maybe around the age of 18, maybe this person started selling drugs, right? And they never offered drugs to me because they know I don't use drugs. But I just maybe hang out with this person because we've been friends since we're children. And my mind's holding on to this relationship. Well, maybe we're 22, 23, 24. Maybe we're walking down the street, and now a rival drug dealer sees this individual, and they don't know that I'm not a drug dealer. We're walking down the street. Maybe they pull out a gun and start shooting at my friend, and one of those bullets find me, right? I'm going to end up dying because of my unwise choice to associate with someone who's into something unwholesome, right? Or maybe we're in a car, we're driving, and maybe I'm driving, and maybe the police pull me over, and my friend maybe slips some cocaine under my chair, right? Because maybe they have it on them and they're afraid that the police are going to search them. And now when the police search the car, that gets pinned on me, right? Because I don't use cocaine, I don't snort cocaine, I don't sell cocaine, but boom, it was under my chair, and now the police are going to attribute it to me, right? So these are the unwholesome things that can happen to you as a result of your choice to maintain friendships that are people are doing unwholesome things. So the Buddha doesn't teach you to be judgmental. You should never be judgmental towards someone, because that's only going to cause harm to your own mind, but you would like to make wise decisions. This is called discernment. So for example, if that was the case, if I had a friend who started selling drugs at the age of 18 and I realized this, with discernment, wise decision making, I could choose to go away from this person, not judging the person, not looking down at them, not considering them to be a bad person, but just realizing for myself and the type of life that I'm interested in creating, this doesn't fit into my life and I need to step away from this relationship. And whatever that person chooses to do, that's on them. And that's their life and that's their choices. And I'm not going to allow it to affect me by choosing to associate with this type of thing. So these are the kinds of things you can do where you don't judge the person and look down on them, but you just make the wise choices for you. So the Buddha is saying that this individual individual has unwholesome friendships. And because of that, that's going to lead them towards this rebirth into the lower realm of hell. And then he says, and there being something further to be done, he nevertheless stopped halfway with a lower degree of distinction or attainment. What he's talking about here is that as you're training your mind towards enlightenment, there's various attainments. There's something called the jhanas, which are 4 preliminary phases that your mind goes through. And these are enhanced qualities of mind that you'll experience as you're learning and practicing the teachings. And then after the jhanas, your mind moves into the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stage of enlightenment, where the mind is actually enlightened when you're in the 4th stage of enlightenment. So what the Buddha is saying here is that this individual has attained some attainments, probably the jhanas, because by the time you get to the 1st stage of enlightenment, you wouldn't have these unwholesome friends. You would have already changed all of that about your life. So he probably was experiencing the jhanas, which are enhanced qualities of mind. And the Buddha is saying, he pretty much gave up. Right? He became complacent. He didn't continue to grow and develop his mind from that point forward. So the Buddha is saying because of this, he's going to be reborn into the lower realms. Sometimes when people get into these jhanas, it's like a really heightened quality of mind, and people's conceit can come in, people's complacency can come in. They can actually think that they're enlightened. Some people, when they get into the jhanas, they think they're actually enlightened. In the jhanas, you still experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. So if you ever hear somebody that shares that enlightened people still experience anger and sadness and frustration and these other discontent feelings, they are probably experiencing the jhanas, thinking that they're enlightened and describing what they're experiencing as enlightenment. Because I can assure you, enlightened beings don't experience those feelings. But some people in the world think that enlightened beings do, because when you get into these enhanced qualities of mind of the jhanas, it's like night and day. It's like, wow, you never realized your mind could experience that type of quality. So once someone gets into the jhanas, if they don't understand that they're not yet enlightened, they could kind of bottom out and become complacent and choose to not progress further. And that's what the Buddha is saying here that this individual has done. So do you guys have any questions on this particular chapter? Just 3 things that the Buddha is kind of saying, hey, these are unwise to maintain as part of your practice, which is unwholesome desires, unwholesome people to associate with, and then becoming complacent and not furthering your development on the path. It looks like Arvind has a question on Zoom. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Teacher David. Thank you for your wonderful session. I just have a few questions, but I'll start with the first one. When you mentioned about the different realms of existence and that there's possible interactions between them, I wanted your opinion on, we know that there's kind of a widespread belief in this black magic or evil eye or any kind of supernatural harm that can be caused by unseen forces. It exists in so many cultures, even Thailand, Southeast Asia. Some even say that there are some kinds of like magicians or sorcerers who can enlist spirits from other realms to kind of use them in whatever way. So to harm someone or to use them in whatever way they want. So I was wondering, how does the Buddha's teachings kind of address such phenomena? Did the Buddha ever kind of talk about these kind of things, or ask or suggest how we can get protected from malevolent forces? What's kind of the advice from the Buddha on how to deal with such kind of things?
Sure. The only way that anything is going to ever happen in your life is based on decisions that you are making. So it's not possible for someone to curse you, for example, or put black magic on you that is going to cause unwholesome things in your life. Everything that's happening is a result of your decisions. This is called the natural law of Karma. This is a core central teaching of the Buddha, where he's teaching you this cause and effect, or action and result. Everything you experience is a result of your decisions. So it's not possible for someone else to put a curse on you, because if it was, nobody could ever get to enlightenment, right? So someone could just put a curse on the Buddha and he would start experiencing all these unfortunate results. By the time you get to enlightenment, you fully cultivated the wisdom of how the world truly works. And the way that it works is through cause and effect, or action and result. It's not through outside forces that are causing any particular result in your life. So it's not good luck or bad luck. It's not destiny or fate. It's not about God or some entity like the universe controlling what you experience. And it's not other people or other beings that experience or control what you experience. It's your decisions that lead to any particular result. So what the Buddha teaches you to do is cultivate wisdom and make wise decisions about your particular day-to-day affairs, and that's what's going to lead to wholesome results or wholesome karma. Because when you make unwise decisions, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. So the way that the Buddha teaches you to protect your mind is to cultivate wisdom and make wise decisions. And that's what's going to ensure that you're not affected by anything that someone else might be trying to do. So anybody could try to put any kind of curse that they would like on me. It's never going to affect me because I'm not going to make any unwise decisions. I'm only going to make wise decisions that are going to lead to wholesome results. So all of these things that people are believing in, like black magic and, curses and all these kinds of stuff, it's actually not true. If somebody believes in that kind of stuff and now they go around the world and they start experiencing unwholesome things in their day-to-day life, they're going to attribute it to that black magic or that curse, where in reality, it's coming from their own decisions. If you don't look both ways before you cross the street, when you walk across the street, whack, you're going to get hit by a car. It's not the curse that did that. It's not the black magic that did that. It's you. You're the one who chose to walk out in the middle of the street without looking both directions. So everything you experience is a result of your decisions, not from other people and these kinds of things that people like to believe in sometimes, like curses and black magic and things like this.
Thanks, Teacher David. The next question I had was with regards to when you describe the eon, the hells and the number of years that they spend in there, like they say it's eons and really long periods of time. I'm just wondering, is that like in human years, like the number of years, or do they get like do they take that long to get reborn onto the same planet Earth? Is it literally the same number of years, or does time kind of work differently in those realms?
Yeah, we don't know how long an eon is because the Buddha used it as a measurement of an immeasurable amount of time. And the only number he could count up to was just short of 1 million. So anything beyond that, they would just refer to it as an eon. So we don't know how long an eon actually is. That is just this immeasurable amount of time. And he talked about life in the hell realm and even the heavenly realm. There's some times where he talks about heavenly beings having a lifespan of 500 eons. So how long that is, whether it's 5 million or 500 million or 5 billion, we don't know. The Earth, as we know from modern science, most scientists say it's about 4.5 billion years old that the Earth has been here that long. So we don't know about the universe itself. I don't think how long the universe has existed, but the Earth itself, most scientists date it to about 4.5 billion years old. So somewhere between 1 million to 1 billion, we can think that, somewhere along the lines, that's how long an eon is, but we really just actually don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Teacher David.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, that's it. All right. You're welcome, Arvin. All right, I don't see any other questions here. Let me see if we have anything on YouTube or Facebook. All right, I don't see anything else there either. All right, so there's multiple chapters here. This next chapter, let me see. I'm going to actually, let's just read the first part of this first chapter. This one is actually very long. This is where actually the Buddha is describing various aspects of the hell realm. So we're just going to read this first part. Is there someone who would like to read this? You got it, Rachel? Okay. So I'll just stop you when we get to a certain point, Rachel.
Simile for the suffering in hell. Monks, there are these 3 characteristics of an unwise person, signs of an unwise person, attributes of an unwise person. What 3? Here, an unwise person is one who thinks unwholesome thoughts, speaks unwholesome words, and does unwholesome actions. If an unwise person were not so, how would the wise know him thus? This person is an unwise person, an untrue man. But because an unwise person is one who thinks unwholesome thoughts, speaks unwholesome words, and does unwholesome actions, the wise know him thus. This person is unwise, an untrue man. An unwise person feels pain and grief here and now in three ways. If an unwise person is seated in an assembly or along a street or in a square, and people there are discussing certain pertinent and relevant matters, then if the unwise person is one who kills living beings, takes what is not given, misconducts himself in sensual pleasures, speaks falsehood, and indulges in liquor, wine, and intoxicants, substances that cause heedlessness, which are the basis of heedlessness, he thinks, these people are discussing certain pertinent and relevant matters. These things are found in me, and I am seen engaging in those things. This is the first kind of pain and grief that an unwise person feels here and now.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop there because this goes on where the Buddha describes the various suffering that you will experience if you're in hell. And you guys are welcome to read this if you like. He actually goes through and he describes all these different ways that an individual is going to experience all these different painful things in the hell realm. It's not something that we need to study right now. It's available in the books, but it's just a really long amount of content. So what I'm going to do instead for this particular chapter is focus on what the Buddha is talking about here, which he's referring to the 5 precepts. The 5 precepts are things that the Buddha is teaching you of 5 impactful things that will cause harm to other beings or yourself, and therefore it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So like killing, the Buddha teaches that it's unwise to kill, but it's not black or white, right? He doesn't teach that way. He's helping you to get to this higher consciousness where you can understand wise decision making. So when he teaches you the 5 precepts and he talks about killing, he essentially teaches you to not intentionally kill other beings, living compassionately for the welfare of all living beings. Because if you went out into the world and actively try to kill other beings, people are going to try to kill you, right? People are going to kind of cause harm to you, and you're not interested in that harm. And that's probably why you don't go around trying to kill other beings, right? But he's not saying to preserve all life at all cost, right? Because like say somebody broke into your house at 3 a.m. in the morning, maybe they're coming in through the window. I'm sure they're not there to bring you chocolate and flowers, right? They're there to do harm. So if you were backed up in a corner and you needed to harm this individual in order to stop the harm that's coming to you, you need to feel comfortable to do that, because that would be a practice of compassion and loving kindness for yourself. In order to live compassionately for the welfare of all living beings, you need to start with having compassion for yourself. So the Buddha isn't teaching this black and white doctrine. He's not teaching rules. He's teaching you to think through the variables of what's going on. So that's why you don't go down the street stomping on insects, and you don't, try to kill the dogs and cats that you see outside and the squirrels. You just walk through the world without trying to harm any other beings. But if you were in a situation where somebody's coming at you with a knife and they're trying to stab you, if you needed to harm that individual in order to stop this harm from coming to you, that's going to produce wholesome results for you. That's not producing any unwholesome karma. So you need to be able to see that. And typically I'm teaching this particular precept in details, walking you through various examples of where it would be wise or unwise to potentially choose various choices in your day-to-day life. So if you guys have questions on that, you're welcome to let me know. He talks about not taking what is given, like stealing. If you were to steal from somebody, if you were to take something from them without their permission, this is based in your craving, in your ill will towards this person. And then there's something called the unknowing of true reality, or the ignorance. We don't realize in the unenlightened state by stealing something from someone else that is causing harm to that person. So if I stole somebody's car, now they can't go to work. They can't go to the store and get basic necessities in order to sustain their life. If they have children, they can't take their children to school. I've caused harm to this individual, and now this harm is going to come back to me. But remember, this isn't black and white. If I was outside in my village and there was a member of the community who had injured themselves, maybe they're bleeding profusely from their arm. If my other neighbor has a piece of fabric on their front porch and I need to grab that fabric in order to put on a tourniquet and be able to save this person's life, I'm going to take that fabric and I'm going to wrap up their arm and I'm going to take what is not given and I'm going to save this person's life. But then with wisdom, you can go back to that neighbor when that person's off in the ambulance. You can knock on their door and say, hey, sir, hey, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I took this fabric from your porch. I was using it in order to help our other neighbor. I would like to make amends for this. Can I pay for this, or can I go buy it somewhere for you? I would like to replace it for you, right? So that's what you would understand to do, because, hey, I've taken this thing and maybe I've done it for a good cause, but I still need to make amends with this individual. And maybe this villager is like, no problem. Don't even worry about it, right? Or they might say, oh, I bought it over here. You can go buy it over here. Thank you so much for bringing that back to me, right? So you're not interested in just taking what is not given because you're causing harm. So the Buddha teaches us that it's unwise to do that. He talks about sexual misconduct. He talks about having sex with minors, going outside of existing relationships that you're in, having sex without consent. He talks about things like this because your sexual activity can be harmful, and he teaches you not to cause harm. And we experience harm when we're performing sex in a way that is harmful. So if we were to go out and have sex with multiple people, this is where we get sexually transmitted diseases. This is the harm that we experience as a result. Or if there's many people that we're having sex with, maybe they get jealous and now they start fighting, and now maybe they start damaging our material possessions. Maybe we lose our reputation in the community for having sex with so many different people. There's all kinds of harms that can come to you both personally and professionally. And the Buddha brings this to your attention through helping you understand these important teachings. Then he teaches you not to lie, because when we lie, the people discover our lies. Both personally and professionally, it'll damage our relationships. The people don't see us as being trustworthy, dependable, and reliable. So if we tell the truth, now we can have successful relationships with the people around us. Whereas if people can't rely on us and they can't trust us and we're regularly lying, they're going to discover those lies. And then when it's time to, say, staff you on a project at work, your boss is going to be disinterested in doing that. So you're going to not experience continuous forward progress in your career because people find out that you're regularly lying. And if you can remember when we were children and we used to do a lot of lying, it's really hard to keep all those lies straight, right? Your mind's kind of obsessively trying to figure out, what did you say to one person versus another versus another? And how could you ever get to a peaceful and joyful mind in a peaceful and joyful life if our mind's constantly trying to figure out what lies we said to one person versus another? Whereas if you just speak the truth, you can be at ease because you're just always speaking the truth. So that's what the Buddha teaches you. And then there's substances that cause heedlessness. These are certain substances that you can put in the body that cause a lack of mindfulness or a lack of awareness or a lack of alertness in the mind. And what you would like to do is cultivate awareness of your mind. So if you're taking substances that are taking your mind in the opposite direction of that, you're walking in the opposite direction of enlightenment. So you would like to ensure that whatever you're putting into the body is creating an environment for health and wellness of the body and of the mind itself. So if you ingest any substances that cause heedlessness, then this is going to cause a lack of concentration, a lack of focus, a lack of attentiveness, a lack of alertness. And now you can easily make unwise decisions that are going to lead to unwholesome results for you. You know, these precepts that the Buddha teaches about killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and taking intoxicants, he puts them in this order for a reason, because if you take intoxicants, you're more likely to kill, steal, have sexual misconduct, and lie. If you go talk to people who are in prison, they'll tell you that they're there for murder or they're there for robbing a bank or something like this. But if you really talk to them and you're like, why are you really here? About 80% of them will tell you it's substances. That if they weren't high on that substance, they would have never killed that person. Or if they didn't have a drug habit, they would have never robbed that bank in order to get the money to fulfill their drug habit. So these substances actually create a lot of difficulties in an individual's life because it's producing heedlessness in the mind, and then that individual is going to tend to make unwise decisions. So there's other things that the Buddha is teaching you here that you're welcome to look at in the actual book, but I just thought I would focus in on those for this particular audience. I think you guys will probably appreciate that more than understanding all the different details about what's going on in the hell realm. So do you guys have any questions on anything you'd like to ask questions about? Yes, ma'am. Once you hold it, you'll see the lights come on. And it just takes a second to engage.
I will take your first example for my question. Mm-hmm. If I have a friend that is making bad decisions, making bad choices, am I supposed just to walk away from him, or am I supposed to stay there and show there's other choices that he can make?
It all depends. The Buddha is not going to give you like a step-by-step instruction of exactly what to do in every single situation, because that would be that there's a permanent answer for every single thing. And that's not the case, because every situation has different variables, and you need to look at those variables and make a wise choice. So he's helping you to move to this higher consciousness where you get rid of the pollutions out of your mind, and then through the understanding of the natural laws, then you can make wise choices for yourself. And in each situation, there's going to be a unique set of variables, and there's going to be a unique answer. So the things that I would share with you in that situation is you need to look at your relationship. How close are you to this person? How well do you know them? How much do they look to you for advice, and how much do they heed your advice? If this is like a brand new relationship that you're just starting out on, probably don't have much connection there. So it's probably best to just kind of move on from the relationship. Whereas if you've had a long-term relationship with this person, it might be wise to see if they're open to your advice and say, hey, I noticed that you're getting involved in selling drugs. And, you know, we've been friends for a really long time here. And I'm just curious, is this something that you would be interested to talk about? And they're either going to say yes or no. And if they say, no, I don't want to talk about it, okay, I understand. And if you don't have a craving, then you can just walk away and choose like, hey, I'm not going to spend time with this person because it's unwise. If they say, yes, I would like to talk about this. Oh, okay, great. Because I notice you're starting to sell drugs. And from my experience, this is going to produce all kinds of unwholesome results for you. And I'm just wondering if you've considered to maybe do something else besides that, because, you know, you're such a great friend and I would like to continue to be friendly with you. And it would be wonderful if you had some other way of supporting your life rather than selling drugs. You could talk like this with the person, but you need to be aware to not give unsolicited guidance. When you start giving unsolicited guidance, that's where your ego and your craving is coming in. And now you're going to meet with resistance from the other person. Whereas if you ask them up front, hey, is this something you would like to talk about? They're either going to say yes or no. And if they say no and you don't have a craving, you'll be completely fine. You won't be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. But if they say yes, they are interested in talking about it, even when you start talking about it, their ego can come up. And now you might realize like, whoa, this is really unwise to even talk about this. And you might even back out of the conversation and decide to walk away from that situation. So the Buddha gives you guidance on things called right intention, right speech, and right action. He gives you the natural laws of how to speak with people in a very polite, kind, friendly, respectful way that ensures the best possible outcome for the conversation. And that's some of his core central teachings as part of the Eightfold Path. And that's where people will typically start with those types of teachings. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay. Oh, sure. Go ahead. What is hell? Okay, so these 5 realms, these are existences that an individual can experience. And while we call them realms, and people oftentimes think of them as being very far distant places, these beings are actually all in the same time and space as us. So just like there's a human being sitting in this chair, if I got up and walked away and we left the door open, we might have a dog that comes in and sits here, or a squirrel, right? Because we're all in the same time and space. And the same thing with the hell beings, afflicted spirits like ghosts, and heavenly beings. We're all in the same time and space. The hell beings aren't deep down in the core of the earth somewhere. Heavenly beings aren't far off in the sky somewhere. They're all right here in the same time and space. And this is why some people can see them and some people can even hear them talking. So these are just different existences, and different qualities exist. So in the hell realm, those beings are what we call formless beings. They don't have physical form. They do have a consciousness or a mind, and they experience exclusively painful feelings. They don't experience any pleasant feelings or any what we call neither painful nor pleasant, like shyness or things like this, or uncomfortableness. They're experiencing deep pain within the mind. So this particular realm, you can't actually get to enlightenment from that realm. You need to be able to be either in a human existence or in a heavenly existence in order to be able to actually experience enlightenment. You can move up from the hell realm into other realms, but you can't actually get to enlightenment from there. It's a place where an individual would go to burn off what we would say is unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. So if I was in the human realm, and let's just say I was a serial murderer and I was killing a lot, repeatedly killing, more likely than not, I'm going to be reborn into the hell realm. And now in that hell realm, I'm going to be experiencing lots of agony and lots of pain. And this is my burning off the pain that I've caused others. Now I'm going there in order to extinguish all of that, with an opportunity to come back up into these other realms, with an opportunity to then train my mind and get to enlightenment. So nobody's sending you there. It's not other people sending you. It's your own decisions that are sending you there. And based on the condition of your mind at the time of death, then your mind will experience whatever rebirth it is. So it's not like somebody's looking at the totality of your life and saying, okay, I'm going to send you here or send you there. And it's not a permanent existence. That these realms are all impermanent, just like everything else around you. You can see the whole world is impermanent. So heavenly realm is not a permanent existence. That's not the ultimate goal of the world. And being in the hell realm, that's not permanent either. But it is an existence that some people will experience in order to extinguish certain unwholesome things that they've done throughout various lives. And now once they've done so, they have an opportunity to now experience improved existences to be able to get to enlightenment potentially, if that's what they decide to do. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, looks like Arvind has some more questions. Go ahead, sir.
David, I just have a few questions. The question I had was, this was with regards to someone was talking about karma versus hell realms and how they kind of relate. And the question that was asked to me was that if there is karma, what use is there of karma, of someone suffering from the karma, but they don't know what they did in a past life to deserve that karma, because that defeats the purpose of the learning or the corrective action that they should have been doing, instead of just suffering the karma on its own without any effort. Like, for example, if a child, someone, anyone, but an innocent person is suffering because of past karma, if they can't really remember what they did wrong, how would they actually benefit from that lesson?
Okay, so when we talk about in this life that you're experiencing karma from a previous life, the way that is happening is not through anything mystical or magical. It's actually decisions that you're making in this life. So I'll give you guys an example. Okay. So first, let's just talk about rebirth and how rebirth occurs. So if there's a cardboard box A that's a certain size, certain color, certain shape, certain texture, and there's content in that cardboard box like cravings and residual memories, at the end of cardboard box A's life, right, this cardboard box is going to dissolve because it's impermanent, right? So the mind has certain contents in it, craving and residual memories. And at the end of this life, when this mind dissolves, those contents, if they exist, need to find a new mind. And now this new cardboard box, different color, different shape, different texture, is going to now be that new mind that now comes into a body and experiences a certain things in life. But whatever that person is deciding, it's based on cravings, desires, attachments. But those cravings, desires, attachments are oftentimes coming from a previous life. So it's decisions that an individual is making in their current life, right? So now let's just say in the past, is there anyone here named Bob? I'm going to use a couple names. I'm not interested to use names of people that are here. Okay, so let's just say someone named Bob in the past was very sexually promiscuous, and he was having lots of sex with lots of different people, right? And let's just say that he died at the age of 80 years old. still having lots and lots of sex with lots of people. Okay, so now when he dies, his mind is not yet enlightened. He's got craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning in his mind. So those cravings and residual memories are going to now need to find a new cardboard box. And let's just say this new cardboard box is Barbara. And now this new cardboard box, Barbara, has these cravings and residual memories from Bob in the past. And now she is also perhaps having lots and lots of sex with lots of different people. Maybe she's had different boyfriends, different girlfriends, who knows, maybe different relationships, maybe she's been married a few times, maybe she's gotten divorced several times, maybe she's even contracted HIV along the process. And now let's just say at 45 years old, she dies, okay? We might say that this is her karma from her previous life. But really what it is it's the cravings from her previous life were in her mind in this new life, and now she was acting upon that. And it was those decisions based in the cravings from the previous life that are producing certain results in this current life, right? So there isn't anything mystical or magical following you around. It's not like a black cloud that's following you around, that instead you're making certain decisions in this life that are leading to certain results. And now if you see like, wow, I've had 3 marriages that ended in divorce, I keep having broken relationship after broken relationship, you should be able to see in your day-to-day life, this natural law of karma is the most unbiased teacher that you'll ever find, because it's showing you in your day-to-day life where things are going well and where things aren't going well. So if you're experiencing broken relationships over and over and over again, don't blame it on the other person. Look at your own mind and figure out what wisdom are you lacking that needs to improve in order for you to be able to have better relationships. And that's where the teachings of the Buddha come in, to be able to help you to see that. So in any one particular existence, you're experiencing results of decisions that you're making in that existence, but the craving and residual memories can be coming from your previous existences, which are motivating decisions in this life. But now in this life, Barbara had the opportunity to learn and grow and develop, and she could have worked on extinguishing her cravings. She could have cultivated the wisdom to realize having sex with so many different people was unwise, but she never had that opportunity. She never took that opportunity, so she ends up dying at 45 in this particular example. So you can see that anything that you're deciding to do is affecting you in this life. It's not like you murdered someone in a previous life and then just out of the blue, you're going to get murdered in this life. It's not going to happen that way. There's a sequence of events that are leading to any particular result that you're experiencing. So if somebody was very murderous in their past life, their mind's going to have certain unwholesome qualities in this life, and now they're going to be spending time around a lot of unwholesome people doing a lot of unwholesome things, and now maybe they experience getting murdered in this life based on maybe having joined a gang or robbing banks or things like that. So this is how this is occurring, Arvind. It's not just out of the blue, and you have the opportunity in every single life to be able to cultivate wisdom, getting closer and closer to enlightenment.
Okay, I think I get it, Teacher David. So it's not like if I stole from person A, then in my next life, if the karma is not fulfilled, someone steals from me. It's not like that at all. There's no correlation between what one person has done in his past life and then a similar thing happening to him in the next life. Am I understanding it correct?
Yeah. So in this life, if you're choosing to be around people who are doing unwholesome things, then it's very likely that they're going to steal from you. But they're from decisions that you're making in this life. It's not like there's this accounting somewhere, this ledger of all the things you did unwise in your last life, and now you have to experience those in this life, and there's somebody orchestrating all of this. That's not the way that it's happening. It's based on decisions that you're making in this life that are leading to any particular result. But it's your cravings from your previous life that are motivating those unwise decisions in this life that are leading to any result in this life.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. The next question I had is regards to there's some concepts I've read of about transferring of merit for those who are in the afflicted realms, like the hell realms or the ghost realms. Like some people say, you get to good karma, chanting, and then you can offer that merit to kind of help souls in those routes. Is there any validity to that?
I'm not sure if I heard you 100%, Arvin. Your connection's breaking up on us. I heard you talking about merit and chanting and producing wholesome karma. And were you saying, is that true? Is that what you're asking?
Is there a way to transfer merit to those beings who are in those rounds?
I see. Okay. Yeah, this is impossible. What merit is where you're giving and sharing with individuals who are sharing the teachings of the Buddha in order to help other people get access to the teachings of the Buddha, where you're practicing generosity. So if you make an offering to a temple or to a teacher in order to help that individual share the teachings of the Buddha, we refer to that as merit. And Arvind is saying, is there any kind of ceremony or ritual that we can do to transfer our merit that we've produced to somebody else? And the answer is no. This is a huge misunderstanding among many people in the Buddhist community, is that when they're giving and sharing and they're practicing merit, the benefit that you're experiencing is your mind is training to let go because you're practicing generosity. You're training your mind to let go of craving, desire, attachment, just like the meditation that we were talking about with breathing mindfulness meditation. Whenever you're practicing generosity, it's training your mind to let go. And there's no way for you to transfer that benefit to somebody else. The original words of the Buddha, you can see where he talks about creating karma. He says that you are the owner, you are the heir of your karma. Essentially, you can't produce karma for other people. So it's not possible for me to do a whole bunch of wonderful things and then transfer the benefit of that to somebody else. There aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship in the teachings of the Buddha. But if you go into Buddhist communities in some places that aren't studying with the original teachings of the Buddha, you will see rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. And the reason why is because of impermanence. People have changed his teachings since his death 2,500 years ago. So while you've been exposed to those kinds of things, Arvin, it's important for you to be able to see what the true benefit of merit is that it's enhancing the quality of your mind, training it to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And there's no way for you to transfer that benefit to somebody else. And it's also important for you to see the natural law of karma, that it's your decisions that lead to any particular result. So it's not like uncles or aunts or moms or dads could do all these unwholesome things and now they're reborn into some other realm, which is what you're asking. And now all of a sudden you're going to do a bunch of wholesome things in this life and transfer that benefit to them. That's like superstition. That's like auspicious things. And the Buddha never taught any superstitious or auspicious things in his teachings. He says it very clearly that he doesn't teach those things because that's not true reality. And it's not possible for you to transfer the benefits of your good deeds to somebody else. Each individual person needs to make wise decisions for themselves.
Thank you, Teacher David. And my final question is regarding what you said about intention and circumstance with regards to wholesome conduct. My question is, if there are individuals that are conducting themselves with good intentions to help people, but the actions that they're taking are not necessarily wholesome. So, for example, someone like Robin Hood who's stealing, but he's using that money to kind of feed the poor and help the downtrodden. Or, for example, a freedom fighter that's maybe fighting for independence of, the slaves, but he used violence. Do those people who engaged in these unwholesome actions, but with the good intentions, do they also go into the hellish realms?
You can't say that this individual is going to absolutely go to hell. I mean, a Buddha can be able to know those kinds of things, like what you saw him talking about. But you can't say that just because someone stole, they're going to go to hell. Because like during the lifetime of the Buddha, there was an individual who killed 999 people during that lifetime, and they actually got to enlightenment during that lifetime. So I know none of you guys have killed 999 people, so you could surely train your mind to get to enlightenment in this lifetime. There's no reason why you couldn't. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't about, like if you do these things, you're going to go to hell, and now you need to feel guilty and shameful about those things. It's about training your mind to become a better and better person. No matter what you've done in the past, you can improve what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So an individual who's stealing, using your example, stealing, and then using that to give to poor, they're not negating their stealing. They're still going to experience the results of that stealing. You can't negate that. So if you're making an unwise decision to steal, you're going to experience the results of that. You can't steal and then give it away to poor people and not still experience the unwholesome results of stealing. So that's why the Buddha teaches you that whenever you're practicing generosity, that you should do so without harming other individuals. If you're stealing from somebody to be able to give to somebody else, you've just caused harm to these individuals that you stole from, and you're going to experience that harm because you can't escape that. You can't run and hide from it. You're going to experience it. Yes, sir. Yeah, you're welcome, Marvin.
Kia ora. My question relates to the part where it talks about killing living beings, and perhaps to summarize the question more succinctly, it's if there's any teachings within Buddhism of a prescribed diet, and how does the absence of killing living beings relate to animal beings as well, and how influence?
Yeah, the Buddha teaches us that it's unwise to kill any living being, and he explains what a living being is through a teaching called the 5 aggregates. These are 5 criteria that helps you to discern what a living being is. A living being is going to have physical form. They're going to have feelings. They're going to have perceptions, which are views and opinions about the world. They're going to have what's called volitional formations, which are choices and decisions. They're going to have free will, and they're going to have a consciousness or a mind. So you can see that all animals are actually a living being. So you won't find anywhere in the Pali Canon where the Buddha explicitly says, to eat plants or to be vegan, for example. But there's teachings in the Chinese canon, which is a kind of another branch of Buddhist teachings that is very similar to the way the Pali Canon is worded, where you can see that the Buddha is talking about those things. You can also see when he teaches not to steal, that it's unwise to steal. And if we were to kill an animal and eat their flesh, there's stealing involved. And you can also see when he teaches right livelihood, he teaches that it's unwise to have a livelihood in things like living beings and meat, and he talks about these other things. So while we don't have anything in the Pali Canon that's explicitly saying not to eat meat, we can discern this for ourselves by looking at true reality and looking at the natural law, that when we kill an animal, we are now eating that animal flesh, and it's causing harm to that animal, and therefore we're going to experience harm as a result. Because when we eat that animal flesh, we're going to be eating drugs and hormones and toxins that have been put into that animal, or that the animal acquired through even just drinking groundwater or things like this. And now that's going into our body, and we'll experience the results of that. So if an individual would like to really practice these teachings closely, they will typically move to a plant-based food supply, and that's going to produce the best results for them. This cause and effect, or action and result. You'll see that you have less sickness in the body, and also it'll clear up your mind too, because you're not ingesting those drugs, hormones, and toxins. But whether somebody does that is up to them. This path isn't about rules and commandments. It's not about forcing other people to do things a certain way. What a teacher is doing is we're just helping you to see the natural law of karma, and then whatever choices you make for your life, that's your choice. And there's no judgment towards anybody who's choosing to do any particular thing. So like, for example, my wife still eats a little bit of meat, right? I love my wife. I love everybody. I love everyone in the world. And if someone chooses to eat meat, that's their choice, but they are going to experience some results from that. At one time, human beings were all plant-based eaters. So when we first came into the world, we ate exclusively plants. And you can see that from our teeth, that our teeth are very similar to a cow's teeth, a horse's teeth, because our teeth aren't designed to eat meat. We only started eating meat out of necessity because we ran out of plants in the forest, because we became too populous. So we started taking over animal kills, where animals were killing other animals. We became scavengers, and we were running them away, and we would take over their hunt, and we would start eating flesh of another being. That wasn't enough for us. So we started doing organized hunting, where we organized and we started hunting animals, killing them and eating them. That wasn't enough for us. So then we started to do manufactured farming, where we started manufacturing animals. And that's where we are today. And we can see that it's having drastic impact to the environment, to the health of the body and the mind. And if somebody would like to move away from that and get back to what we did when we were first coming into the world, that would be ideal. And that's the best way to live your life. But whether someone chooses to do that or not, it's up to them. And if someone was going to do that, it would be wise to do it gradually. Because one of the things you might notice is that because our bodies have been so dependent on meat for so long, that oftentimes you might notice that you need a certain amount of animal products in order to be able to sustain your life. So I went to vegan for probably a good 5-6 years or so, 7 years. Can't remember how long it was. And as I was doing that, even taking supplements, my B12 dropped, pretty low, and I was starting to experience certain symptoms. So now I still have to eat a little bit of eggs and a little bit I eat a little bit of ice cream with my son every once in a while to kind of get the B12, maybe a little bit of cheese sometimes to get the B12. So that way that I'm showing love and kindness and compassion to this being, because it would be unwise to just allow this being to die as a result. So as a population of people, more and more as we move to plant-based food supply, our bodies will get adjusted to this. And now eventually human beings could actually just eat plants all the time. But because we're like the first generation of people who are significantly moving towards plant-based food, we're going to find that some of us are going to still need to eat a little bit of animal products just to get things like B12. But once we do that in large masses, we can get to the point where we don't need that. There's a student who studies with me who she's in her 50s, and she's always been vegan, even when she was inside the womb of her mom's stomach. And she's never had a piece of animal flesh ever. And she doesn't need any supplements or anything. She can just eat plant-based food, and she doesn't need any supplements. She doesn't have any symptoms of anything whatsoever because her body never had meat to begin with. So whether somebody chooses to move to plant-based food or not, it's a choice for each individual person. You will notice improvement in your health and in the condition of your mind if you decide to do this, but it's up to each person to do it and be able to see the cause and effect and the improvement that you'll experience because of it. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so we have a question, one more coming in here on Zoom. I'll answer this. Says, hello, David. What about the people experiencing NDES? I'm not sure what that is, Ron. Is this a glimpse into various realms, or is this a view of the afterlife? Oh, near-death experience. Okay. I've never had a near-death experience, but I've seen plenty of people who talk about this, and it appears that their mind is kind of moving towards another existence, but yet they come back to this existence. So I can't really speak on it other than what I've seen people report about, but that seems like what it's doing is the mind's kind of moving towards a potential new existence, but this body and this mind ends up being able to sustain life, and they basically come back into this particular body. But this is where you can see the mind and the body are two different things, because the mind can be off experiencing these things, but the body is just staying here. So this correlates to what the Buddha taught, but I don't know 100% about what those people experience because I've never experienced it for myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end class here. We typically just kind of teach to wherever we need to teach, and now it's kind of a good time to end class. It's close to 11 o'clock. Maybe some of you guys were only planning to be here for, maybe 30 minutes or so. I don't know how long you were planning to be here, but I appreciate that you guys were interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha, even to the point that we've just discussed them here. I have a class that I teach in the evenings at 9 p.m. I do it from home, and I live stream it, where we do 10 chapters in each particular Pali Canon English study group session. And the students that study with me there, they've been studying with me for many years. So a lot of the basic things that I've been talking about here, we don't talk about there. We just go through and we study this. So if somebody was really interested in deeply studying the Pali Canon, that would be a good class for you. And they're all recorded. So even if you can't attend live, you can actually watch the recording either through Facebook, YouTube, or on our podcast. If you're just getting started on the path to enlightenment, I suggest you start with the first book, Volume 1. That's the best place to get started. You'll see it here in the temple. You'll see it on our website. You can get it for free, like I mentioned to you. Just here, if you'd like to reimburse us for our printing cost, or online, you can download it for free or go print it yourself or get it on Amazon. And tomorrow, there's a class that I'm going to be teaching at 9 a.m. That is really great for people that are just starting out, because that group learning program where we go chapter by chapter each Sunday, that's the best place for someone to get started, either that or our Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course. So thank you for joining. I appreciate that you were interested in learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha. Whatever you decide to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.